Hello, everyone. I thought I would give you my thoughts on the concept of free will. Now, it's very important um, to any story, that the concept of free will play a role because without free will, all stories are meaningless. Because most story, or at least most stories, because most stories rely on there being good versus evil, of choices having depth and having weight, that they matter, that our will matters. And and so if you don't believe in the concept of free will, then everything is determined by fate, and ultimately it doesn't matter what any of the characters do. And ultimately, no character, including the evil characters, can be morally responsible for anything because they're going to do what they're going to do. So the concept of story itself falls apart if there is no free will. And I honestly think, though, that denying free will is a self-refuting proposition, because if you deny the concept of free will, then the conclusion that there is no free will was also predetermined. And so you didn't arrive at it through rational means, which means you can't really trust any of your beliefs or senses, including the notion that there is no free will. So it literally is a self-refuting proposition. And and again, and if you say, okay, well, we have an illusion of free will because of something like natural selection, evolution. Again, you're getting back to the point, though, that if everything is an illusion or you can't trust any of your senses, then why should you trust your senses that naturalism, or this idea that free will doesn't exist? Why should you trust that that's true? And so, again, it's all self-refuting. But also, there are many practical applications because, again, if there is no free will, then no one can be morally responsible for anything. And you might say, well, and so, Hitler wasn't morally responsible. It was just, neurons firing in his head. That's it. And if you say, okay, well, we should still punish people in order to deter them, in order to deter, so to speak. Well, the problem with that is that, one, again, you shouldn't be angry at anybody for their moral failings, because ultimately they can't help it. But also, at that point, it becomes more about the appearance of deterring instead of punishment, and not actually punishing people. And also, you can have people who are so popular in society that it would hurt society to punish them, and since people aren't morally responsible, why punish them? Or it's more about the appearance of the appearance of punishment becomes more important than the actual punishment. It's kind of like, when you go up to a teacher, and because the it kid is bullying you in school, and you say, he's been bullying me, punish me. And the teacher says, I'm going to give him a good talking to, don't you worry. But the kid doesn't actually get punished. It's all about the appearances. But again, without free will, then the concepts of good and evil cannot exist. And therefore, conflict in story cannot exist if the concept of good and evil does not exist. And ultimately, you end up, and because it's ultimately a self-refuting proposition, therefore, the whole idea of plot and character crumbles to pieces, because there is no foundation upon which any of that can rest, because you can't trust any of your senses, including your sense of story and of character. And ultimately, even words lose their meaning because you can't trust even that. And so that is why the concept of free will is so important, because all, or at least most stories, rest upon that. So those are my thoughts on free will.